I'm Brett Lonsdale, and we're going to be talking about the Lightning Conductor web part, which is one of the products that we have, of course, in our portfolio. And this particular tool is our content aggregation tool, which is available for SharePoint on premises and also for SharePoint Online. So we're going to be taking a look at the product from the ground up, if anybody is new to the product and wondering what it is. But we're also going to focus some of our time, in fact, about a third of the time, looking at some of the new features of the Lightning Conductor, which is being released or has already been released, in fact, in this particular build, which is version 6.2. So before we begin, just a few slides just to sort of introduce who we are as an organization, who I am, and of course what the product is. And then we're going to get into mostly live demonstrations, so you'll be able to see the product from the ground up being configured. And then we're going to get into, like I say, some of the new features as well, which allows it to work inside of Viva Connections. And there's also some other refinements that we're also going to get into. So first of all, just a quick intro to the company. So Lightning Tools, we're a company in our 17th year of building products for Microsoft SharePoint and now, of course, Microsoft Teams as well. So we develop most of our tools under the SharePoint framework. And we'll have a look at some of those products in just a moment as to what they do from a high level perspective. And we also have an office in Orlando, Florida, and through that office we serve our customers through the trial period and also existing customers as well across the US time zones. And we've also got our UK support team here as well, which is based in the headquarters at Lightning Tools. So in terms of products, what we do is we, like I say, address some of the different challenges or gaps that companies face with inside of Microsoft SharePoint and also Microsoft Teams. The product that we're going to be focused on today is the Lightning Conductor, but we also have other products that fill different challenges inside of SharePoint, including permissions. Who doesn't have permissions issues? So if you're facing permission issues or want to get a better understanding of permissions within inside your SharePoint and Teams environment, then we have a product called DeliverPoint that helps serve the site owners and site collection administrators, effectively content owners, so you can get better control and understanding as to who's got permissions, what content has been shared externally, and so on. So you can do that through that tool. We also have a discussion board or discussion forum tool. So if you want to capture Q&A through the platform of a forum within inside of Teams or SharePoint, and over time build a knowledge base so that people's questions get addressed. They can self-service, find answers to questions that may be stopping them from being productive. You can do that through Social Squared. We also have our data viewer, which is the data integration tool. This is a product that you can connect to external connectors, so opening it up to things like Jira and Salesforce and so on. Or you can also use it for SQL databases or Excel workbooks and things like that. And either just display the data in a nice modern manner inside of modern SharePoint, or you can also go through and build out charts and so on as well. So it's got that ability for pie charts and line charts, etc. And finally, we also have list form design tools. So Lightning Forms enables you to build out modern forms within inside of SharePoint. And we've also got supporting that list actions, which is automation across a list, and document generator as well, which allows you to work with SharePoint list items and generate a document from those list items. And there's also a product through our partner Kudzu, which helps you to migrate from different types of legacy forms like PDFs or Word forms or even InfoPath forms, and help migrate those across to Lightning Forms and SharePoint lists. So that's what we do as an organization. Like I said, we're going to focus on the Lightning Conductor, and that product is the tool that has been around for quite some time now. We actually generated this way back in 2007, and right then we were solving the need to aggregate across different SharePoint site collections, which at the time was a challenge. There was the content query web part that came with Microsoft SharePoint 2007 back then, and allowed you to aggregate content from lists or libraries within a site collection, but that was the boundary. You couldn't go across different site collections. So we filled that gap with the Lightning Conductor, enabled a product that could aggregate across different site collections, and it also helped you to build powerful views as well. So the content query web part back then, it was very challenging. If you even wanted to display something other than the title column inside your aggregated report, you'd have to get into some XSLT back then in order to be able to do that. Whereas with the Lightning Conductor, you can easily add new columns. You can apply things like conditional formatting and also grouping and create calculated columns and things like that. And you'll see some of those features today as we go through it. It's also grown up a lot from just being able to aggregate from different lists and libraries. So not only can you aggregate from lists and libraries across different site collections, or now hub sites and associated sites, or even Microsoft 365 groups as your scope, we can also get into some of the other apps. So under Microsoft 365, of course, we're not just creating tasks inside of SharePoint task lists, we're also creating tasks in Microsoft To Do and Microsoft Planner as well. We're not just putting our documents inside of document libraries, we're sometimes putting them into OneDrive. So there's lots of different apps that come under Microsoft 365 where we may also want to aggregate that content either as its own view inside the Lightning Conductor or as a way of merging views as well. So we could take, for instance, task lists and the tasks associated with them or stored within them from across different sites and site collections, and merge them in with tasks from Planner or tasks from To Do as well, in order to create one single view. And we could do the same thing with events or anything like that too. I could take my Outlook events as well as events such as channel events inside of Teams, as well as event lists, and have those all show up inside one common calendar as well. So if you think of your sort of calendar overlays, but on steroids, we're able to really bring that content in from anywhere and display it within inside a calendar. We could even mix our tasks into the same calendar if we wanted to as well. So there's lots of capabilities around the Microsoft Graph entities. That's how we can get to some of those apps. The Microsoft 365 groups gives us a way of getting to some of those graph entities, and also the lists and libraries associated with those Microsoft 365 groups. We can also aggregate content through search if we need to, and we can also use now external graph connectors as well. So if there is external data sources such as Salesforce.com or Jira, even a website or another intranet technology, we can get to that content and also bring that into Microsoft SharePoint through the Lightning Conductor. So that's the basis of what it does. The main aim of the product is to really cut down on that time that it takes to look for content. So if you put yourselves in the end user's shoes for a moment, sometimes you think about, I know there was a task associated with me, I saw it flash up. Is it in Planner? Is it in To Do? Is it in task list? And if it's in a task list, which task list or which Planner plan, and so on. And the same thing with documents as well. You may remember creating a document or seeing a document and you need it, but you can't remember whereabouts it is. So of course there is things like search, but one of the challenges with search is you kind of have to know that it exists in order to be able to search for it. Whereas the Lightning Conductor, because it's aggregating that content, sometimes we see information that we didn't know exists and is actually useful content to us in our jobs. So the Lightning Conductor overall just saves that time in looking for content, but it also cuts down the amount of time that may be taken when duplicating content as well, because you cannot find it. So that's the main aim for the product. So just to summarize, the different types of data sources that you can get at. So the Microsoft Graph entities are really the Microsoft 365 apps that I mentioned. We also have the SharePoint lists and libraries. They could be any lists and libraries. It could be also custom lists with custom content types as well. We have search results, the Microsoft 365 groups, and external graph connectors. And then there's also different ways of displaying the content. So we could use a grid view. The grid view is kind of like the default way of working. We can easily build our scope where we want this content to come from, and then we can pick and choose different columns that we want to display with inside our view, and then get into conditional formatting and grouping and so on without actually having to touch any JSON or anything like that. We can very easily do that through the user experience, which we'll be getting at today. We also have the JSON capability if you want to. So with JSON, if there's something specific to your organization, if you want to display tasks in a different way to how every other organization may want to, for example, you could build out a JSON view, but we also create our own JSON views, which we make available through the product. So there is already a calendar view. There's a tile view as well for displaying documents in a tile view fashion. We have pictures and so on. And there's also, like I said, the custom templates that you can create. Really, or ultimately for backwards compatibility, there's some XSLT views. So some of those are built in, or you can build your own too. And then we also have something we released around about 12 months ago, which is the adaptive card view. So the adaptive card view allows you to use the Microsoft Adaptive Card Designer in order to be able to build out a view as well. So if you wanted to display tasks as little cards or anything like that, you could also do that. And either, again, use some of the existing adaptive cards that we've made available, or you can also create your own. And then another choice that you have is where do you want to aggregate this content to? You could aggregate it to a modern SharePoint page within a site, or you could also, of course, put it on a communication site and so on as well inside the SharePoint, or you could add it as a tab inside of Microsoft Teams. So that's a great way of getting content that you perhaps need from SharePoint, or you need from Planner or something like that, and bringing it where you're doing most of your work, where you're having your meetings and so on, or you're collaborating with your team members inside of Microsoft Teams. So you've got both of those capabilities. It's not an upsell or a cross sell or anything like that. It's the same product. You can use it in both environments if you wish. So that's a bit of an intro. We're going to jump into a demonstration and I'll show you around the tool. So one of the new features is to do with Viva Connections, which is why I've got Viva Connections open here. We've got a dashboard with some adaptive cards displayed already. Nothing to do with the Lightning Conductor that you're seeing here. We're actually going to show off the new feature of adaptive cards. But before we do that, let's just take a look at what the Lightning Conductor is, so that if you're new to it, you can understand the product and then have a better understanding as to what we're doing with the adaptive cards. And even if you're familiar with the Lightning Conductor, hopefully you'll pick up some new tips along the way as we go through some of the Lightning Conductor capabilities here. So I'm just going to go in and edit this existing SharePoint page that I have. So we'll just drop that into edit mode. And once we're in edit mode, of course, we've got the ability to add a web part. And the web part that we're going to add is the Lightning Conductor. So we'll just pop that on the page here. And in here, we've got the web part unconfigured at the moment. So we've got the configure button. And when we click onto that, you'll notice that this opens up inside the quick configuration. And it's the quick configuration that you can use if you want to do something relatively generic. If there's your documents or task lists or planner plans, Microsoft To Do, anything like that, that is sort of across the board, you can do so without entering the advanced mode. If there's something specific that you want to do, like it's a custom content type that you're looking to aggregate, or there's a different external connector that you want to use or something along those lines, then you can also jump into the advanced mode for that reason. Of course, you could always start off with a quick configuration as well, and then get into some more of the advanced features once you've created your view and gotten started with it. So on the quick configuration, you've basically got just a handful of questions here to answer to get the view going. And once you've done that, you can then get to the customization afterwards. So you'll see here there's different types of data that you may want to see. Some of these are SharePoint. So we've got SharePoint tasks and events and announcements and things like that. We've also got some planner plans and Microsoft To Do and OneDrive items, which are all accessible through Microsoft Graph. And you'll also notice at the bottom here is the other, which is actually going to jump us straight into the advanced mode so we can configure something unique to your organization. So I'm going to just start off with regular SharePoint tasks. And you'll notice that we build in a few different views that have some filters already set. It's got columns already configured and so on. It's just really a starting point. We can then select from some different sources of where this content is going to come from. So if we have multiple task lists in multiple sites across different site collections, we can get to those. Or we could also do things like work with the current hub site and any site associated with it, and that become my scope. So there's a few different options there in relation to what the scope is. And then we can also then choose how we want to display the content. So remember back to that slide we just had a look at, there's the grid view, there's some JSON views, there's also adaptive card views and so on. And really that's what these three things are. These are some of the built-in templates. So the grid view is already configured, but you can configure it further. The calendar view is of course a calendar, built under JSON. And then we also have an adaptive card view as well, which really gives you the understanding as what could be done with adaptive cards. So I'm going to work with this grid view. You'll notice that some of the different options have different refinements as well. This one here is going to help me to display user avatars against things like the assigned to field or the created by field, so we can maybe look at who these people are behind the tasks and so on. So this is the adaptive card. Sorry, this is the person card that we can see. So we've got some information coming from the user profile on that. We've also got the task name, the task status, the priority, due date, and percent complete. So some of the columns that you would wish to see if you were aggregating tasks. And before I publish the page here, notice that I could go in and make customizations. So in here, when I go to the show column, it's showing me different types of columns that I may want to add to my view. So notice the lack of start date. I could select that and build that into my view. I could then move that column if I wanted to move it left slightly next to the due date. And we could also apply some data formatting as well. So if I don't really need to see the date and the time, I could just opt for the short date here, as well as setting other different refinements, as you can see. So there's lots of things that we can go through and play with in terms of how that column is displayed. So we've now got that down into the short date. We could add some conditional formatting. Again, some of that is done for us, which you can see here under task status. Maybe if I wanted high priority tasks or something like that to really stand out, we could get into the conditional formatting. And with SharePoint lists natively, you've got a few different options as well for conditional formatting. But anything more advanced, you really need to get into some JSON. What I'm going to show you here is how you don't need any JSON at all to really go through and apply some powerful conditional formatting, which is going to bring those tasks out and make them stand out to the end users. So these are my three conditions: high, normal, and low priority tasks. And for each one, I can set some conditional formatting. So these could be sort of modern pill colors, which is what you see here under the status column, or we could also choose icons. So we could have different dots in different colors. So we could opt for high priority in a certain color. We could have also medium, maybe in the themed color, and we could also opt for low priority being in green. Okay, so we've got some sort of traffic light colors going on there with our conditional formatting. So now we can focus in on what's really important. So that's the sort of thing that you can do here with tasks. I'm just going to throw in one new feature here as well, which we will summarize this in the slides a little bit later on. But I'm just going to show you that we can also add calculated columns. And one of the new features that we released back in July this year was some built-in expressions. So with the calculated columns, really you can create your own calculations. I could do things like due date minus start date to find out how many days I've got to perform the tasks and that sort of thing. But you'll notice in here that we've also got some hyperlinks to the parent site or to the parent list, so you can jump straight there from the item if you don't actually need to open up the item itself. But there's also a new one here called list attachments. And notice how we actually render the code here, so you can get in and make that your own if you wanted to make any customizations to that. So this is a brand new feature in version 6.2 that we're releasing this month. Can't call it attachments, there's already an attachments column. I'm just going to call this attachment therefore. So we could go through and insert that, save it, and make that visible somewhere inside my view. So I'll have that on the far right. And as I now save that, notice how we've now got this attachment column coming through, so we can actually open up the attachments if there are any attachments to the list items that I'm aggregating. So nice little refinement that we made to the Lightning Conductor. So I'm just going to name this view as tasks, and we'll just create a few other ones. So I'm just going to throw in documents there. It's very similar to what we just did, but it's a very common requirement to see documents. You'll notice that I can see documents using the SharePoint object model. So we're going to display content using that. So I'm going to choose the hub site and anything associated with this site to display the documents. You'll notice there a little bit of a lag because it's having to query which documents to display and security trim them and so on, so that I'm seeing the relevant ones that I should be able to see. So what we can also do is create a document view using search, and that's where the search, we could call that documents by search or something along those lines. There we go. So I'm going to do pretty much the same thing. We'll display all documents. We could even go to the current tenant using the search engine and display those. And what you'll notice is when we load that view, it's displayed immediately. And we've got 168 pages of documents, and each page has 50 documents or folders on it. So it's a lot of content that it was able to bring back immediately based on the fact that that content was already indexed and can be retrieved immediately. And that is really the only downside to using search over the object model, is the fact that you are seeing indexed content and not real-time updates. But if you can live with a sort of 20 to 30 minute lag on that, then you'll be able to access documents relatively quickly. So we've got the three different views there. To get into some more specific things, we'll create a planner view. So this, again, we could use the quick configuration for. So I'll bring back some content via Microsoft Graph. And rather than just spending our time in the grid view, we'll also display one of the built-in JSON views that we've got, which is known as task view for this one. So when we look at our planner plans, we can see all the different tasks associated with each of those plans, and we can get into those. With that, we could also add new tasks or amend tasks. We can complete tasks and so on very easily just by interacting with that JSON view. And then the final one, just in case you missed our July webinar, sorry, writing JSON rather than Jira. So I'm just going to create a Jira view. And this is using Microsoft external connectors. There's no quick configuration because this is quite unique to our organization. So when I go into the advanced mode, I'm going to select here the graph connectors as the roll-up engine that I'm going to use. And there's different ways of displaying. So these are the 4 different methods that we spoke about. So we've got JSON, XSLT, adaptive cards, or the grid view. For this one, I'm going to use adaptive cards. And then when we select the data source, it's querying the different external connectors that we've already created inside of Microsoft 365 admin. So we can build out these external connectors. There's lots of default connectors that you could utilize. So notice that we've got things like Salesforce coming through. There's also different websites like the Lightning Tools website or the Lightning website and so on. Yeah, so it's various different types. We're going to go with Jira demo. So we'll connect to that one. We could query it if we want to. Just to also point out that so you've got the ability to preview the items as well. So that goes for every single data source. So if you want to see what you're going to get before you hit finish, you can do so through there. So we can see that we're actually getting some content back. And then when we go to the columns, we're now better armed, having seen that preview, as to which columns we might want to display with inside our view. So with this, we've got things like the title. I may want to make sure that title goes first and so on. If I was building out the grid view, I'm not. I'm using the JSON view. So that's kind of unnecessary. But I could still make different columns available if I was building out the grid view. And then you've got that ability to set the sort criteria, make them filterable, and things like that, as well as adding the calculated column. So you'll still see some calculated columns available for external connectors as well. So I did choose the adaptive card view, and one of the benefits of pulling data in through the external connectors is that Microsoft 365 actually creates an adaptive card, and you can design that adaptive card through Microsoft 365 as well. So I'm just going to use the adaptive card that is associated with my external connector. So it's loaded in the JSON for that. We've got that there. There's different properties that we could set, like pagination, and also different filtering, sorting, and paging, and things like that in there too. So if I just hit save on this one, you'll notice that we're now also getting some content in from Jira, and it's displayed in an adaptive card view rather than the grid view. Okay, so that's kind of a very quick tour of the Lightning Conductor, and hopefully one of the things that you've picked up from this is that it's very flexible. You can pretty much configure it to do whatever you want. In the Q&A session, if there's some specific scenarios that you want to see, please throw them at us, and we'll be happy to go through and try to demonstrate that with the content that we've got. So I'm just going to publish this page and copy the URL to that page so that I've got that on my clipboard. I did do a Control-C. Of course, you can't see me doing that, so I'll just right-click and copy it. So we've got that URL there, and then we'll be able to use that when we get into some of the new features, such as the adaptive cards. So in summary, what's new in this release? First of all, we've got a couple of things that you can see. Some things are behind the scenes. So first of all, we've got the adaptive cards, which is our main new feature for Microsoft Viva Connections, and I'll introduce that as we go through the demonstration. We've also got the list item attachments, which you saw. So via the calculated columns, we can now get to list item attachments. So that's something we weren't able to do before. So now if there are attachments to list items, you can get at those too. And then we've also got some other features such as taxonomy terms. So if you're using managed metadata and terms, they weren't translated before, now they are, so they can pick up the current display settings and become translated. We've also got an option to enable or disable tooltips with inside the grid view display. So we had some feedback from our customers, which is extremely valuable to us to get that feedback. But yeah, one of the feedback options was, yeah, some of the tooltips are in the way of me seeing my content. So that's something that we made it optional as to whether you want to see those tooltips or not. And behind the scenes, something you're not going to see, this is really on the basis of some changes that Microsoft made to the SharePoint framework on which the Lightning Conductor is built. If you're doing some very large scope content aggregation, then what you might find is that you are in danger of getting throttled. So of course, we're having to query that content, apply any filters and security trimming to it, which can take some time, in which case, yeah, you may see that as an issue. So the search is actually a good way of avoiding that. Using the search indexing instead of using the client-side object model doesn't just give you a performance increase, it's also really avoiding that throttling because that content is already indexed as well, and you can get to see that content through that. But there's also been quite a lot of work here through some SharePoint framework enhancements that we've taken advantage of, which mean that it's less likely that you're going to get throttled when you're doing large queries and using the Lightning Conductor. So that's a change that we've made to the Lightning Conductor and also our permissions tool as well, deliver point. So let's get into a demo of some of these things. So we're going to get back into SharePoint here, and we're going to navigate to this Viva Connections homepage. So on the Viva Connections homepage, you'll see a couple of adaptive cards that I've added. These are just really a hyperlink out. So one to our corporate website, the other one to Viva Learning. In order to work with these adaptive cards, we can just simply come down here to Manage Viva Connections. And under Manage Viva Connections, we've got the View Dashboard, which is displayed on that side panel. And this gives me just the dashboard view. We can edit that dashboard view. And as you can see, we can create a mobile dashboard, or we can also create a desktop dashboard like we're seeing right now. So I'm going to work on the desktop dashboard. So when you land on a Viva Connections homepage, either through the browser or through Teams, you're going to be able to see the different adaptive cards that have been added. And of course, if you access your corporate intranet via the Microsoft Viva Connections app, you'll be able to land on a page like this and see information that's relevant to you. And that really is the point of the Lightning Conductor making its content available through adaptive cards, is that if you are just using your mobile phone and you want to see what tasks have been assigned to you, or what events you've got coming up today, or what documents you're in the middle of working on and you've not checked back in, or any of those scenarios, you'll be able to do that just simply by glancing at your phone, and you don't have to navigate to a page that contains the Lightning Conductor and accessing one of those views that you've just seen. So there are some out-of-the-box adaptive cards that you can go through and add. As you can see, some of these are actually to do with some of our other products. You'll notice there's the Lightning Conductor on there. There's also recent activities, unanswered topics, and topic subscription, which are all to do with Social Squared, our discussion forum tool. But beyond that, you'll notice some other ones, like this assigned tasks one. So if I bring up the assigned tasks, you can see that that is saying that there's one overdue task. If we go into the properties of that, you'll see that it's very limited as to what you can configure. It's really just doing as it says here, going and looking at my top planner tasks that are assigned to me. But I don't have an option here of seeing other plans or anything like that. It's just showing the top ones from Microsoft Planner. So there could be other tasks that I'm going to overlook if I just relied on that. You'll notice also that there's things like shifts. There's a Teams app as well. So with the Teams app, you can display any app from Teams. So notice you've got that ability to search this. So any app that is available in Teams, you can display here inside an adaptive card, which is useful to do. And then we've also got things like the card designer. So if we have a look at that card designer, you can get into this and you can build out your own card. So you could have one with an image or just a heading and so on. That's really how we got this Viva Learning in the corporate website one. So if we bring up a heading here, you can choose between large and medium. You can add URLs to those different buttons here, and you can add an image, etc. Just like if we go into the properties here, you can see that same thing. So there's the custom image that's displayed, the description I set there with the title, the link, and made it a large display. And that's all that really does, is it acts as a hyperlink through the card to display that. So what we're going to do is actually utilize the Lightning Conductor here to show some really valuable content on your dashboard. So if I select the Lightning Conductor, oops, let me just republish and figure out what went wrong there. Otherwise, not a great demo. Let's remove that one. There we go. So we've added the Lightning Conductor, and we can now go into the properties here. And again, you've got medium and large. I don't know what happens to small. Maybe it was too small, but we've got medium and large that we can choose from. We can set a card icon, which could be any icon you like. And we've also got a card title. So bear in mind, we created a handful of different views. One of them was tasks. So I'm just going to create that as the title. We'll just have the word tasks, and I'm going to paste in the URL to the site or to the page that contains that Lightning Conductor instance that we configured. And immediately beneath that, we've got the ability to choose the Lightning Conductor instance. So sometimes you might have multiple Lightning Conductor instances on the same page, in which case you could choose which one you want to work with. This will pick up the title that you set on the Lightning Conductor as well. And then it shows me the views that we created inside that Lightning Conductor instance. So notice we've got our tasks view, the documents by search, planner, and Jira. So we'll start off with tasks here, and we can then choose the columns. Now, we don't want to try to replicate the view that we created inside the Lightning Conductor in a small adaptive card. We just want enough information for this to be really valuable when you glance at it from your mobile phone using the mobile view, or when you land on the desktop and just realize that you've got maybe some overdue tasks that you need to attend to. So I'm going to select the task name, which of course is going to be important. We could maybe have the priority, and we'll also go with task status and due date. So these are the ones that I really want to show. So we've selected those, and then we can customize this message here. So it currently says you have, and then a placeholder retrieved item. So the placeholder is doing a count of the number of items that it's going to display that are relevant to us. So I could change that to say you have X amount of tasks that you need to work on. And of course, the relevance of this is really the relevance of the view. These could be, it could be a view that's showing overdue tasks, in which you could say that in your message and so on. We then have a view items button text. So it's going to have a button that just says view items. So we could change that to something like see tasks if you wanted to. It will preview those tasks for you. So you can choose how many you want to preview using this this slider. And then you've also got the ability to navigate through the pages. So it'll be 15 per page in a quick view that you're going to display. Okay, so that's the configuration. All of the adaptive cards also work with audience targeting, and that's part of the Viva Connections dashboard thing. You're serving relevant content to the users. So we could have this only display for people in the UK if they set that as their user profile, or people that are a member of a certain SharePoint group or something along those lines. So that's configured. Let's close that side panel and republish the page. So you can see here it says I've got 6 tasks that I need to work on. There's our See Tasks button. And when we click onto that, we can see those 6 tasks, and we can just open them up from here, or we could click onto more details, in which case it's actually going to take me to the page where those tasks live, and we get the full Lightning Conductor experience there with all the conditional formatting, grouping, and everything else. Okay, so that's our first one. So it's useful there to see your tasks coming in from the task lists. If we just go into the edit mode again, and we'll just add another card, we could again utilize one of the other views. So we'll go with another large one, and this will be Jira issues. So if you just consider the power of this for a moment, that this content could come from anywhere. This is coming externally to Microsoft 365. It's coming from Jira software. This could be Salesforce. You could see orders that have been placed today in Salesforce. You could see your top 10 customers coming in from Salesforce, or any scenario like that. All you need to do is have that external connector that's configured, and then you can render that inside an adaptive card that's going to be useful information to your user base. So we've pasted the URL in. We've got the Lightning Conductor instance again, which is the same one that we had before. I just need to change the view to the Jira view, and then choose the columns. So we've got the title of the issue. So this is issues reported about the software. We can see there's 294 issues in here that we're working on. We could render an issue link, so we can actually open up those issues. And we've got the also when it was created, maybe not so important, maybe who reported it, and anything else that we want to include there. So I'll just have those few, and then we can again change that text to say you have X amount of issues reported about our software in Jira. And this is where the audience targeting really comes in, because maybe you only want this to display to people inside the R&D team and not to everybody else. Once again, you've got that slider. So we'll set that to show 15. And again, I could change the text on the button and so on. We'll just go with how it is now. So notice that we've got our view items button. We can click onto that, and this is bringing in that content from the external connector. And once more, we could hit more details and go through and view that. And there's the next button where we can start to work our way through the different Jira issues. Okay, so we've got the Jira issues, we've got tasks. We'll just throw one more out there, and then we'll open up for a Q&A. So I'm just going to add here a new instance. We'll keep it medium just for change. Let's call it documents. Paste in our URL, and we'll display the name of the document, maybe who it was created by, when it was created will do. And yeah, we'll just accept the defaults on everything else since you've seen that. So again, you can see there's 161 retrieved documents inside that view. We could go through and personalize that view a little bit more based on the filters, maybe just show documents that I created or something along those lines. I didn't set that slider on this one, so it's only showing one at a time. But there we go. We can browse the documents through there. So how this looks, once you've republished it, if we just land back on our Viva Connections homepage, notice how this is showing up as adaptive cards. We could add that dashboard into any section. So we could throw it over here on the right hand side and maybe move the weather or something up there. And it's just becomes a column with things that are very relevant to me as a user. So I don't have to browse around SharePoint looking for things. We can just come in here and see what we have to do. Maybe I don't need to really work on these tasks yet. I've just saved myself a considerable amount of time trying to remember what site to go to and so on in order to be able to see what tasks are associated with me. Okay, so let's open up for a Q&A. I didn't point this out earlier on, but if there is any questions that you want to throw in either to the Q&A panel or through the chat panel, I'll be able to read those out and address them. I see that Sandy's already done a great job of answering some of the questions that have come in. Okay, so there was a question about connecting to the Nintex automated cloud API and displaying tasks from there. Yeah, there should be the ability to create an external graph connector to the Nintex API and bring in the content that way. Absolutely. So that's the only question I'm seeing right now. I don't know if anybody's got any more questions. Feel free to type them if you do. Yeah, I know Sandy kindly delivered this webinar last night to the APAC region and had a few questions. So Sandy, if you want to come off mute as well, feel free to repeat any of those questions if they're relevant.
Sure. Yeah, there was one about the list view threshold and being able to aggregate when the content is over 5,000 items, and so the answer to that is or how the Lightning Conductor can deal with that. So if you are setting some sort of filter on a column, I mean that's where the list view threshold will come in, is when you're trying to filter something. As long as that column is indexed in your data source or data sources, then the Lightning Conductor, generally speaking, should not have a problem with that. But as I answered last night as well, if you find that you are having a problem with that, then please feel free to contact our crack support team, which will be able to help walk you through mitigating that issue.
Excellent.
And I'm trying to remember what I know. There was another question.
Yeah, the list view threshold is something that comes up quite regularly. So I think that's a great question that was asked there. So yeah, thanks for clarifying that one.
There had also been a question about the ability to return a user to the page using the source parameter. I know that has come up in the past as well. So the answer to that is that we can look into that. I think you can do that through a calculated column currently using some JavaScript, but maybe finding a way to make that a little bit more intuitive.
So it's a great question. So to take you back to the page where the item is that the question?
So when you open an item such as a task, for example, it's going to open a new tab in the browser, and when you're done looking at that, we have had that feedback before that people would like to kind of automatically be brought back to the page with the Lightning Conductor on it.
Okay, great. I think something that's actually relevant to that is a relatively new feature.
The side panel, sure.
Exactly, yeah. So with the tasks view, the default behavior you'll notice is as you described. I click onto the task and it's taking me to the tab with the task information on it. But what we can also do is go in and modify the properties of this tasks view. So when we go into the advanced mode here, under the display, you've got lots of different refinements that you can you can make to the display itself. And one of them is, if I can see where here it is at the bottom. So open the item, the view, edit, format in a side panel. So the benefit of this is you don't actually have to leave the page that you're on anyway. So we can have that one selected, and if we just go through, save and republish, you'll notice what happens now when I click on a task is it actually opens up in the side panel, regardless as to where that task is. So this task could live in a completely different site, or even site collection, or a different hub site for that matter, and still show up in context, allowing us to, of course, go through and display that or edit it if we wanted to as well. So that actually solves the problem of even being navigated away from the current tab. You could just simply go through and see those properties right here, which is also
great,
pretty valuable. Excellent. Well, if there is any other questions that come up, feel free to reach out to us. So there is a sales@lightningtools.com for any sales related questions, of course. If you've got any technical support questions, if you're an existing customer or you're trialing the product, feel free to reach out to us on help@lightningtools.com, or go to lightningtools.com, and under the customer menu, you'll be able to submit a ticket that way. If there's any questions for me, Brett@lightningtools.com, and I'll be happy to help you as well. But for now, thank you very much, everybody, for attending. We do have another webinar in a couple of weeks' time on Social Squared. So if you are interested in looking at discussion forums and being able to serve people inside your organization so they can serve themselves by asking questions and gaining answers from their peers, and seeing sort of verified answers and things like that, and then being able to collect that information so it's easily navigated, easily searched, and so on. That's what we're going to be going through inside our Social Squared webinar in a couple of weeks' time. So you'll be able to find details on that through our website. So just go to lightningtools.com and click onto webinars, and you'll be able to register through there. So for now, thank you very much, everybody. Appreciate you attending, and hopefully see you soon.